Welcome to episode 4 of the Performance Advantage podcast with myself, Dr. Will O'Connor, and Dr. Matt Miller, A.K.A MTB PhD. And today we're talking training for triathlon. So we figured we'll do a training for series. Throughout this, we'll do training for triathlon, training for running, sort of endurance running. Matt's got us covered for the enduro, the downhill, the XCO, maybe some 24-hour stuff. But we might as well start off talking our backgrounds in triathlon. Matt, do you want to start, please?
Yeah, well, there's a reason why, I thought Will would be a good one to take this. And that's because of my history in triathlon, which is pretty limited,
Okay.
let's just say. But I'll tell you about my experience racing triathlons. So I did an Xterra event on Long Island. This was maybe 10 years ago. And
So this
I was
is
like,
in America.
yeah, in America, Long Island, New York. I just I was like, sweet, I'd be real keen to try an Xterra triathlon.
Yeah.
I'm pretty good at mountain biking, and I ran once, and I swam as a kid. What could go wrong?
Yeah.
So, I showed up the night before, slept in my car, obviously, and so I line up for the swim, had my bibs on, my
Just your
cycling
bibs.
bibs.
Just
Yeah,
cycling bibs.
yeah,
Okay.
just my cycling bibs, lined up on the front row,
Yeah.
as you do. Pretty keen. I'd done some push-ups before,
Push-ups.
yeah.
Did you get in the
So
water beforehand?
no,
No.
no, not at all.
Okay.
So yeah, I started the race, and about 10 meters in,
Yeah.
people started swimming over top of me.
Yeah.
So my bibs filled up like a big, you know,
Yeah,
kite
like water
or whatever.
parachute.
Yeah, like a parachute, and slowed me right down, filled me up, and I'm sinking. I thought I was gonna die. People are pushing me down. So, I did what you do in the water when you're about to die, and I panicked.
Yeah, no, that's
So
number one recommendation.
yeah, so I started grabbing onto people that
Yeah.
were swimming over top of me, and then I could hear them, as I'm like bobbing up and down, trying to get some air. Like, he's grabbing, and then so I just waited until all the men swam over top of me. I just floated on my back for a second to like kind of give myself a rest,
Yeah.
and I swam to the nearest buoy and clung on for dear life. Um, and then I was rescued by a kayak
Yeah.
within the next 10 minutes. And then I just sat there on the dock, just kind of totally distraught.
Yeah.
Um, Obviously scared and really tired, and I hadn't done anything. Um, so then, they let everyone finish the swim. Uh, you know, Old people, every young babies, everyone
Yeah.
finished the swim. And then they let me do the mountain bike. I
Yeah.
passed everyone on the mountain bike, which was super sweet. And then it got to the run, and obviously I hadn't ran,
Yeah.
so everyone passed me again in the run.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
So yeah, I'm not a really good one to talk about triathlon, but I mean, you know a thing or two about triathlon?
Yeah. Well, my first triathlon, adult triathlon was definitely a better experience than that. So in New Zealand we have the Weet-Bix Kiwi Kids Triathlon, which is like just thousands of kids do triathlon at school. And you've been involved. Have you been involved with it at all? You
No,
volunteered?
but I've
Yeah.
seen we have a local series as well called I Tried the Try,
Oh
and
yeah, right. So it's
yeah,
the same thing, just nuts. So I'd done triathlon, and then just through like rugby in school and everything, just team sports. Then after uh like university, first year of university, and playing rugby and getting drunk and living that lifestyle, I was like, nah, I wanna like push myself. I'm gonna do triathlon. I thought running was a bit boring, like just to run.
yeah,
Ironically, it's what I do now. But at the time, I was like, nah, I swam as a kid until I was about 12 or something. So, and I always ran. And then, like, riding a bike, you can't, if you
just
always, there's that saying, right? You always know how to ride a bike.
Yeah, it's like riding a bike.
It's like riding a bike.
Yeah.
So yeah, I turn up and I used to wear these like tight shorts under my rugby shorts, like compression style things.
Yeah. Underwear.
Yeah, underwear, like long,
Yeah. Okay.
long underwear.
Jockeys, yeah.
And so I just turned up like I was starting in those, and everyone has these like wetsuits, and I'm like,
Okay.
what? Okay, so these wetsuits. I did not know this. I think maybe there was one other person without a wetsuit. So this is in Napier, the Shed 2 Triathlon series there, which is like reasonably popular. And yeah, so start the swim and I just go hard out, 750 meters, full on. And after about 100 meters, I'm like so tired, and I can swim freestyle for a bit longer. Then I'm doing like a mixture of like freestyle, breaststroke, side stroke, try not to cramp or drown. And I finally get in. I'm not sure if I was last. I would have been very close to it. Then I like put my rugby shorts on, my old school singlet, tie up my like running shoes. Can't remember if I put socks on. Then get on this borrowed bike, this old I think it's like this purple Cannondale thing, and then just hammer it. And I started passing people because I had always ridden to school and stuff, and it's like riding a bike, and I was fit, so smash that. But then these dudes come past with these like carbon bikes and like aero things and lap me. This is sprint distance, so I'm being lapped. You know, so it's 7k, about 7k loops. So they've already gained 7k's on me on the bike and biking off. And then get onto the run, and I was already had my running shoes. I didn't even have cycling shoes, you know. So I was pretty good to go. And the run went all right. Like I ran in just under 20 minutes for the 5k.
Okay.
So then like finished all right, I guess. But I had no. These people wearing triathlon suits and they had springy laces, and oh man, it was eye opening. And there was even more eye opening when I went home and I was like, oh, I need to get a wetsuit. And then there's like the cost.
So then you start shelling out your cash, obviously.
Pretty much, yeah. Like I was just because it's in New Zealand, like you go to university during the year, and then in the summer you go home, you work to get heaps of beer money for the next year. So I spent all that like during the summer on new bike, new cycling shoes, cycling shorts, triathlon suit, wetsuit, yeah.
So then what did you drink the next year? Water?
It was Tasman bitter.
Yeah. I don't even know what that is.
Yeah, don't worry. You don't need to know. So anyway, that was I was like I was 19, or pretty much 20 years old, and from there that just sparked an addiction into triathlon, and then I started racing. I just got better and better and started racing elite, and working with elite athletes throughout over the next sort of, well, that was 10 years ago now. So.
Oh, you've been in it for a long time then.
A long time. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and and made that part of the people I researched and things.
Right. So by this point, since you've dabbled a bit in triathlon, you know a bit about the do's and don'ts.
Yeah.
You know, I'm probably a good person to kind of ask you these questions because I don't know, you know, really many of the do's.
Yeah, because this is, so a lot of people come in and they sort of are trying to piece together swimming, cycling, and running individually, which is not. Now, like, the sport's been around for at least sort of 40 years, probably 20 since it's been in the Olympics. So it's very professional, very advanced now in the coaching and methodology of training principles, and also triathlon is very receptive to change because it's such a new sport. Like the Tour de France has been the Tour de France for over 100 years. They just had their 100th anniversary or something. So you know what you're getting there, you know, and people are like, this is how we do it.
Yeah.
Drugs.
Well, obviously.
Yeah. So no, with triathlon, yeah, I thought we'll go through and sort of I'll talk through my approach to training for triathlon.
Okay,
Um,
cool.
and yeah, when we talk triathlon, it's sort of like, as I was saying to you before we came on air, like mountain biking. How do you train for mountain biking is like such a huge scope. There's downhill, there's cross country, there's 24 hour. So when we talk triathlon, we have short distance and long distance. So our short distance is anything from a 1 hour race to around 3 hours. Long distance is going to be 4 hours for the professionals up to 17 hours from pretty much we're talking half Ironman to Ironman.
Okay, and how do you think like someone's ability would kind of transfer over in like the different events? Say I'm doing a short event but I also want to do a long event. Like,
Yeah.
is there much crossover in like the kind of training that they do?
Yeah, there's
I mean, because how
it's
different are they,
yeah, well
right? Because like you have
it's still
swim, bike,
swim.
run.
Yeah, and it's still an endurance event. Um so there is going to be crossover. It's just the sheer volume of training you need to do to comfortably execute a 10 or 12 hour for most people plus race is completely different to what you can do to get through an hour to 3 hours. So when we're looking at swimming, that doesn't really change, because the way in which the sheer load of swimming you have to do to be able to induce enough adaptation because of the non-loading nature of it. You can still swim 3 times a week for a sprint distance as much as you can for an Ironman, which is going to be around an hour to an hour and a half of swimming.
Well, swimming's all about technique, isn't it?
It is. It's hugely about technique, and it's such a small component to the overall race that it's more about, when we go to Ironman, it's more about, can you get through the swim? Like, that's sort of it, really. Can you get
Like,
through
don't die,
Yeah.
right?
And don't waste energy. Like,
Yeah.
can you get through the swim and come out and be sort of like, yep, cool, tick that box kind of thing. You're not making or breaking your race, especially for 90% of the field, where if you're particularly going for a win in an age group or overall placing, then it matters determining on groups and things. But then if
Because you can draft in the swim, can't you?
yeah,
There's a bit of a drafting element.
Yeah, there is. So that's Ironman and half Ironman is really like, how can I most efficiently get through this? Because if I lose 5 minutes, gaining 5 minutes on the bike, which is, for the professionals, 2 hours, for most people, 2.5 to 3.5, like 5 minutes over 3.5 hours, that's reasonably easy to gain if you have enough energy. But if you've like exerted like way too much energy trying
It's easy to lose.
trying to gain time in the swim, now you've burnt off a bit of glycogen or
Sure, and you could lose that 5 minutes really, really quickly.
yeah,
That same 5 minutes.
yeah, so quickly. So that's long, and then when we go shorter, we still need to swim because now it does become a larger component. Because if you haven't done the training, you could easily sort of lose almost that same amount of time, probably more like a minute, 2 minutes, if you haven't done enough swim training to swim at, working on your technique and things, because the way that water works compared to air is it's the same sort of dense medium. So when you try to go faster through it, it sort of creates a larger resistance. So you need to do sort of a minimum amount of swimming in both instances. One, to ensure that you're fit enough just to get through, and the other one to ensure that you're fit enough to be able to swim at a fast enough level that you're not completely out the back.
Yeah, so like in terms of the whole race, how in percentages, like what would swimming be in terms of the overall time?
Oh man, you're asking me. So
Just roughly.
roughly,
Because what I'm trying to see is like, it's this big of a component of your actual race, then how big of a component is it of your actual preparation?
Yeah, right. So it's probably 20%, I guess. Um, yeah, and then if we look at Ironman, it it varies because of like it's going to be a little less than an hour. What's like 45 minutes or an hour of 10 hours is 10%. Yeah. So it's probably closer to 10%.
Okay.
And then as a component of your training, it is going to make up more than 10%.
And why is that?
Well, let's say you train for 10 hours a week. Doing 1 hour of swimming is not enough to induce any sort of what's the way to say it, like to induce enough response. It's not enough stimulus. You could play around if you're doing a sprint distance. You could play around with like short, super and high intensity swim sets of like 3x3 20-minute swim sets. But even then, like that's not getting you fit, is it?
Yeah, but I've always wondered, like, because you're doing all this other training, you know?
Yeah, but we're
Like,
not using our arms.
no. Yeah, so it's a totally different muscle group.
Yeah,
And
it
that,
is.
that's the whole point of training, right? You're
Yeah,
trying to like cause these changes within the cell in these muscles that you're going to use in competition.
yeah,
Swimming's quite a lot different than, the other sports that you're going to do in
yeah.
triathlon.
It's so different, and so you need to, and then like with Ironman, like I'm saying, you need to be able to complete that swim and half Ironman without it having affected you at all. So you need to be very aerobically fit to do that. And then obviously to become very aerobically fit, you need to do a large volume of aerobic training, or at least a large continuous chronic stimulus on those muscles.
Yeah.
So if you're only gonna do 1 hour a week, it's not gonna do it.
Okay.
Um,
So
if
we're talking 1 hour of a lower limit, right? But then we see guys and girls like going to the pool like almost every day when they're
yeah,
training for triathlon. And
yeah,
it's such a small component of their actual race. So you need to do more than 1 hour, but like when's too much, you know?
yeah. Well, the way to look at it would be to do some kind of time trial, right? To see where you are on the spectrum. If you can go and say for a sprint distance, you can swim 750 meters or a kilometer, and you can do that fairly steadily, and do whatever time you do, but you can feel like you can push it, then you're in a pretty good state. Okay, so now 3 times a week is completely fine. You can work on one larger swim set. You can work on for your overall endurance, low intensity one. You can do a high intensity sort of threshold based one for actually working on the muscular engagement and grabbing the water. And then you can do like a super high intensity like 50 meter, 25 meter short sprints with technique based. And that should be enough to get you through, to help you improve and maintain a consistent swimming. But then if you're going into Ironman and you go, okay, well, I need to swim 3.8k, let's call it 4Ks, you go to the pool and you can't swim that without stopping. Now
That's a problem.
That's a problem. That's a big problem, because
Yeah.
now not only can you not swim it, when you do swim it,
You're wrecked.
you're wrecked.
And you have to
Absolutely.
bike and run after that. So
Not only just bike and run, like you're going to spend the next half a day doing that. So now you need to put in a fair block of time, maybe 5 sessions a week, to get yourself to the point that you are now able to comfortably swim a 4K.
yeah.
And once you get to that point, you can then reduce the volume. And I think this is where people make the mistake of trying to continually improve. Like, look, we're trying to grab a couple minutes here. Like, we can get those on the bike very easily.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. It's a bit like just kind of working on your weaknesses, isn't it?
It
Like
is,
you,
but then like with running and cycling, we can make such large improvements through training smart and training consistently. Whereas with swimming, we can get to a certain point, and let's assume that your technique is good enough. When we're now going to really, really struggle for a lot of people to gain any significant improvement.
right?
Compared to if we just like said, this is what we're doing those 3 swims a week, this and this, and now we're really going to focus on how do we improve the bike and run and the overall bike and run combo. Now we're dropping huge minutes
Yeah,
that just aren't even available in the swim.
yeah. So
uh,
you kind of have to take a step back as like the either the athlete or the coach and be like, well, this is where we're at with our swimming, and this is where we want can possibly be,
yeah
and then you kind of need to then take a step back and focus on the trainings that are actually a huge part of the rest of your race.
yeah
Yeah,
yeah just draw a, that's a really good point. To If you can just draw on paper, like, what is the best possible outcome of me swimming my swim training for the next 6 months, say? What could I absolutely think I could peak out at in terms of swimming speed? You write it down, you go, oh, okay, well, that's like over 750, that's like a minute faster. And if you're near the top of the field, that is a big improvement. But in a lot of cases, you're like, oh, okay, well, why would I put so much effort into 2 minutes where I can do that same exercise on the bike and the run? Go, well, how much can I improve? No, oh,
heaps.
yeah, yeah. For the majority of people, again, if we're getting to the top of the field and you start looking at swim, bike, and run, and you're really at the upper limit, it does start to be like, well, where can I get this time?
Yeah,
Um,
sure. Like at
and,
the pointy end, you're focusing on making the tiniest gains, doing everything you possibly can to make the smallest gains in everything.
yeah,
Uh,
but then you're probably training it at different kind of levels and different time availabilities anyway.
yeah, yeah.
Um, but yeah,
So,
overall, that's the way to do it. It's just look at what is the potential gain here. Is it worth it?
yeah,
Yeah,
right.
yeah,
So I've always see these like photos on Instagram or whatever from, triathletes, and you'll see them, they'll be at the pool or something, and they'll have like their bike on a trainer
yeah,
next to the pool. Do you
yeah.
guys ever do any kind of like you'll jump in, do like a good swim workout, and then you'll immediately get out and go on the trainer?
I'm not that big on it.
Okay.
Um, I have done it as a bit of like, the way I would implement it is to test if you're swimming too hard or if you're kicking too hard. There's an article, I'm not sure if I put it on my new website. I can upload it after this. I've designed the triathlon kick impact test. So what a lot of people do is they kick way too much in swimming. Now you can pretty much make the kick null, especially if you're wearing a wetsuit, because it provides only like 5 to 10% propulsion, which is overall, when you're not going that fast because you're swimming, it's like it's not worth the energy input. Your
Okay.
quads are big muscles. If you're kicking the whole time, you're burning off a lot of energy. It's such an inefficient movement.
It's a lot of muscle mass to use, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
So anyway, if you're kicking way too much, you're just burning energy. Especially if you're wearing a wetsuit, for not much return.
Mm.
So then we'll get on the bike, and then we can hopefully, they've got a power meter, or so if you've got a trainer, jump on the bike, try and bike at 300 watts or a fixed heart rate or something like that, and we can then have a look at how did that feel? What was that rating of perceived exertion? So we can do the kicking, and then we can do non-kicking. We can also swim what would be considered like moderate intensity and hard intensity. We can look at the times. So this is like a pacing thing.
Yeah.
We can look at the times and go, look, for 20 seconds you got on the bike and you weren't completely wrecked. The amount of times people have got on the bike and it takes them 5 to 10 Ks, anywhere from 5 to 20 minutes to actually get going to recover from that huge bout of kicking,
Right.
or swimming too hard.
And if they only went 20 seconds faster by kicking really hard, then
Yeah,
they
exactly.
probably
And
just
we
lost
can
that.
we can see that when you come out and you got a heart rate monitor on, it's at 180, or if you've just calmed down a little bit and you haven't swum any slower, or maybe just slightly slower, but you're getting on the bike in a better position.
Mm.
So that protocol, yeah, is up on my website. I'll link to it in the
Cool.
description. But yeah, in terms of the whole like converting swimming to cycling, it's not, and even cycling to running. I'm not big on needing to work those transitions, especially in Ironman, because you have such a large time to readjust. You know, for sprint distance triathlon, you need to work on it because you're getting off the bike and you're getting straight into a 5K run. So you're getting straight. You need to be able to be very experienced at quickly transitioning sports. In an Ironman, you get off the bike and what you're doing in the first 5K or 3K is going to be a lot different to what you're doing, you know, another half an hour or so down the track. You got plenty of time to build into it. So it's not like you're getting off the bike and being like, I need to run. Like, my legs are a bit, or just, if you just like chilled for 500 meters, you'd probably be fine.
Yeah, just cruise for a little.
Yeah, so it's important in terms of just getting that overall volume of training in a day to work a 3-hour bike and a 2-hour run or something. But that's not so much training the transitional side of things. It's training the overall,
Just the energy system.
yeah, the overall volume and muscular recruitment of like, you rode for 3 hours and now you got to run for 2 hours. And that's
So would you, so say you're running and biking in the same day
Yep.
for your different training sessions, would you then, since you're not big on, working on the transitions, would you then like maximize the break that you have in between those two sessions to get the most out of each? Would
Yeah,
you do something like that?
yeah, morning and evening. Now triathlon's just a ridiculous sport. In
Yeah,
terms
I
of
would agree.
trying to juggle training, like what I'm saying, like what we've just talked about in terms of the swimming side of things, it's almost a completely different sport. Swimming that you're training for. There's quite a large crossover. Like there's fitness gains, sure, like cardiovascular, like overall fitness, but in terms, you can swim all you want, and it's not going to make you a better runner.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Like yeah. I
I
mean,
mean, you can
I
bike
can't,
all you want, and it's not going to make you a better swimmer, you know?
yeah. Well, I guess that should be more what I'm saying. You can bike and run as much as you want. It's not going to make you a better swimmer. Not
Yeah.
so, because swimming can help, sure,
Yeah.
but cycling is not going to help you swim any better.
No.
It's going to
And
make your
this is,
legs too heavy, and you're going to cruise along like a bloody jet boat.
yeah, I'd just spend the whole time on my back just resting. So hopefully the current would wash me in.
Yeah, right. Okay, so I forgot the question. Where were we going with that one?
Yeah, so okay, so you got
So trying to maximize the training effectiveness. Yeah, sure. It's so we need endurance for any event. Okay, even for the fittest guys, the sprint distance is taking an hour or just under an hour. Now that's a long time.
that's an endurance sport. I
Yeah,
don't
you
care
need.
what anyone says. Something that's 1 hour, something that's 15 minutes is an endurance sport.
Yeah, it's the name is deceiving, right?
Yeah,
Like sprint
definitely.
distance. Like, oh yeah, it's just hard.
Yeah.
Again, so we need to train 3 sports, but we also need to train a reasonable amount of volume. So when it's generally for a lot of people are working Monday to Friday, yeah, we're trying to get some consistency in with some intensity. So a triathlete would probably train slightly harder than I would have an individual sports person, because they're not able to run 5 days a week. You know, to get to be able to not have to run hard, because they can run enough to get benefits from just being running, the overall running volume. But they can get all that fitness side of things from the swimming and the biking. So I will retract my statement that swimming doesn't help you with other sports. So other sports don't help you with swimming.
Sure,
Yeah. So now we can get a lot of the fitness side of things that we need from not running. So that's all good. Now we can look at making a couple or a singular running session a lot harder, like an interval based one. And so if you're running 3 times a week, you got your long one. In the weekends, generally, you've got your general aerobic run on, say, a Tuesday, Thursday. Now you've got like an interval-based run. So if I was just training a runner, there's no way I'd have 3 runs with one of them hard. It's just, you'd just get them to run a lot more.
Yeah.
For the same benefit and less risk of injury and overtraining.
Yeah, sure. Because the faster you run, the more potential you have for getting injured, and the more you run. So running is also tricky, isn't it?
Yes.
Because you can bike as much as you want, really.
Yeah, and the bike for a lot of people is going to be the largest component and the biggest potential for gain. So then we can get a lot of volume and fitness out of the bike. And yeah, it is about trying to bike a lot, but then you still, if you're doing an Ironman or a half Ironman, you still have to run a marathon or a half marathon, right? So trying to train for that off of 3 days a week is kind of hard. And then, because there's a saying, swim and bike for show, run for dough. And again, with the bike, we're trying to get through it at the highest possible, power output or maintain speed. And in the end, it's speed. How fast can we do it? Trying to do that at the highest rate
without getting tired.
Right? Whereas swimming, we're not too concerned at our best possible output. We're more just like, let's get through it. If we lost a couple minutes, we did. If we didn't, great. In the bike, if we are not on, we can lose 20 minutes or 30 minutes, if we've potentially gone out a bit hard. And then again, if we haven't lost that time in the bike and we've just overexerted ourselves a bit in order to meet a certain time requirement, we are most definitely going to lose that from kilometer, mile 20 or kilometer 30 onwards. Yeah, and the same goes for a sprint distance triathlon. If you go out and just try and rip your legs off, trying to catch the front of the race, or the next person in your age group or whatever, and you now can no longer run as fast as you possibly can, you've been reverted to slowing down, you're now losing time.
Yeah, well, like I always say this in mountain biking and things, usually when we're talking about equipment, and I say, or when we're talking about going too fast, and I always say you're not going very fast if you're laying on the ground off of the track, right?
Yeah.
Because you're not, and it's the same for running. If you end up having to walk like for 20 minutes or something like that, or stop because you have a cramp, you're not going very fast if you're not moving. So all those gains that you had just made, they're gone.
Yeah, and it's important to understand during the bike leg, whatever the distance, is you can do nothing and still move forward, right? Like if you're going down a hill, you can move forward it is about trying to be most efficient throughout the bike, but then still trying to gain time. Okay, so we can gain fitness and time on the bike by doing that. Yeah. So where are we going with this question?
We're just talking about triathlon.
Yeah. So the bike, how can we improve? So it's again a combination of pretty much just fitness, and obviously if you're just heading out on flat roads cruising, you're not really gaining yourself a lot. But if you're able to incorporate some hills or some more sweet spot intervals, again, we've got the running, which really does contribute a lot to cycling fitness, in terms of overall aerobic base fitness. Like, you can put a runner on the bike and they're not gonna, embarrass themselves.
Sometimes.
I'm not talking about
Sometimes.
handling
Yeah.
or anything like that. Like, if they're gonna go out and do a hill climb, they'll go all right.
Yeah. Runners tend to be pretty good at standing and cycling.
Yes. Yeah.
Because that's pretty, like, if you think about the mechanics of running, it's almost like what you're doing when you're like climbing up a hill out of the saddle,
Yeah,
just
the
kind of fanging
cadence is
yourself.
similar. The force application is kind of similar. But it's, yeah. Yeah, so, like, that's what I'm saying. You can gain a lot of fitness for your riding, and then depending on what you're doing, it's like, how can we elicit the most bang for the buck? Because now that's the name of the game in training for 90% of the field who aren't professionals and have all the time in the world. They can't be training 5 hours every day.
Yeah.
So it's really like, what is this person's overall ability to train in a week? And from there, what is their overall ability to train in a week, every week, for 6 weeks, or 8 weeks, or 12 weeks? Not just what can we do the most this week, and then next
Yeah.
week, and then be collapsed.
Yeah, sure. If you
The
do a
week after.
20-hour week and you're wrecked, and you can't train for, 2 weeks after that, what have you gained, really?
Yeah,
But
and I heard a really good comment, and I thought about it on my run. I had some 1K intervals to do on a 2-minute rest, and this guy, you probably wouldn't have heard of him, Lionel Sanders, who's like, he shares a lot. He's one of the best long distance triathletes in the world, absolute animal, and he was saying, don't reduce recovery or rest. Show me more work in the intervals. Right, so it's you need to understand what the main goal is of your training, is to become a better athlete. So if you're so tired that you can't be hitting your goal times, or you're just slow, you're gaining all this fatigue and all of your power outputs, swim times, overall training sort of intensity is all dropping, you're in this gray zone, which triathletes fall into so easily because it's so volume intense.
yeah, yeah,
People are like, well, let's say we're doing 3 runs a week, right? You got Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. Now, for whatever reason, Tuesday rolls around, maybe you've got work commitments, maybe you're just really tired, something happened, now you can't run. Now you haven't run since Saturday, and you're not running till Thursday. That's almost a whole week without running. So that weighs on you.
yeah,
You're like,
yeah.
oh shit, I better get out tomorrow, otherwise I wouldn't have run for. And when you look narrowly at the point in time, overall you're like, oh, actually I've only missed 1 session in a month, but at that point in time. So yeah,
Yeah, but that happens, like missing sessions.
it does,
That's
but
just
it's
normal.
harder with triathlon because you're missing a quite an integral link in your overall plan.
Yeah, so
When
this
you're
is
when you're
this is kind of
cycling
what
every
I'm
day, what's that?
this is kind of what I'm thinking about, like, and like, because you talk about this gray zone, and
Yeah,
I'm thinking about a triathlete that they're doing less of a sport, less of each um, activity
yeah,
each week. So potentially they need to spend a little bit more time going at a higher intensity in each.
yeah.
How many high intensity sessions can you really do?
Um,
Because I think this is where people kind of start to really make mistakes, right? You're like, well, I'm doing less running, so I need to go a little bit harder in my running. I'm doing less cycling, I need to go a little bit harder in my cycling. And this is one of the biggest pitfalls is when people are training for sports is they end up going too hard in a
yeah,
lot of things. So
yeah.
how hard do you really need to go to avoid having your intensity have to reduce and fall into that gray zone?
I mean, it's highly individual, but first off, I just put everyone, depending on their experience level, but pretty much if we're going into we're not racing soon, we can just train aerobically, and that's going to elicit enough benefit. Okay, so now we can see how is this panning out. Let's do some time trials. Let's do a power test, hill climb test, time trial, whatever. Swimming is always going to be high intensity, because if you dawdle up and down the pool for an hour, you're pretty much eliciting the same force on your arms every single time. Well, you're actually going slower. Okay, you will fatigue. So it's really hard to try and overload the arms in swimming. So you need to, by just swimming non-stop.
You need to kind of just go.
Yeah, you need to do intervals. Whereas you can do an aerobic-based hill climb, say at a cadence of 40 to 60 with a low heart rate, but you are gaining a large amount of stress in your muscles, large muscle recruitment, because you can fight gravity. Same with running. Even if you're walking up a flight of stairs, like a large stair set amongst a hill climb, and say you're taking every second step, but you're walking, you're still fighting gravity at quite a harsh rate, that you can gain fitness. So yeah, that's generally what I'm having to do, is actually slow everyone down. And we go through this process of slowing everyone down. Then after a month doing some tests and going, well, we're still improving, so it's completely fine. And after that, it becomes like, well, we do need to be racing at a high intensity. So then we can look at incorporating more so on the bike. First of all, the run is it's not fast, like a lot of people, it's called a sprint distance triathlon, but for a majority of people, they're going to be over 20 minutes in their running. So that's a bit over 4-minute Ks. In terms of real speed, that's not that fast. Okay, when you've got Kenyan marathoners running sub 3-minute Ks for a marathon, that's not that fast. Because that's a marathon. That's 2 hours that they can run that speed. So again, it wouldn't be considered fast as much as something like a 800 meter or a 100 meter would be considered actual speed or fast.
Yeah, sure. It's all going to be relative, though, isn't it?
It is. So a lot of the time, just by running, you're going to be able to improve up to around that. Once you start getting below 4-minute Ks, you start to be running at a reasonable cadence and stride length. That does require a bit of range of motion training. Otherwise, if you're able to run enough, you're able to elicit enough. Whereas when we're talking about cycling, even a middle of the pack cyclist can still travel at 40 k's an hour on a gradual downslope in an aerodynamic position. So you do need to be able to exert those kinds of power outputs.
But let's be realistic. Some people won't ever hit a 4-minute K. Yeah. Even outside of a triathlon.
Yeah.
So, for someone like that, probably like me or whatever, maybe for me when I am running, maybe I should just be focusing on just kind of running.
Yeah, you also have to understand that you are having to do this post 1 hour in a sprint, and then post where would we be in an Ironman? 10 hours? 8 hours? If you exercise for 8 hours and you think you're going to go run fast, you just need to be able to run very efficiently. And so in some instances, speed, or like a 400 meter interval, is going to be incorporated into that. Not so much for all the other like metabolic physiological adaptations as much as just the muscular recruitment pattern and running efficiency side of things.
Yeah, right. Because the faster you run, like even though you're not going to do that fast of a run in your race, as you start to train and run faster, you get a massive loading with, every stride when you're going faster.
Yeah.
And so that'd be what you're kind of focusing on training there.
Yeah. Whereas, so for the half and the full Ironman, it's again just about how fast can you run without having to slow down. With this whole process, we're just trying not to slow down. It's not so much we're trying to get faster and faster. It's like, what's our speed where we're not going to slow down? Because once we start slowing down,
or
stopping, especially in an Ironman, if you're stopping, like you said, with your mountain biking, Coleman, you're not going fast if you're lying on the ground.
No.
And if you're standing at an aid station, chowing down, trying to, recuperate yourself, you're not gaining time. You are 100% losing time. And if that's because you've thought, I'm going to try and run as fast as I can every single session, which a lot of people do, or at least I'm going to try and, overexert myself in every session because that's a big tick for me for working hard, you'll find yourself, with an aerobic deficiency syndrome and not in the best possible position. And that's the same for a sprint distance triathlon, which is going to take at least an hour. You still have to be able to exercise for an hour, so just working on the speed component of it isn't going to get you those benefits.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. I have a saying.
Okay, let's hear it.
All right. So I've got a few sayings.
Yeah.
It's not what you, and this probably isn't mine. Just sort of heard it or came up with it myself. I'm not sure. It's not what you do sometimes, it's what you do all of the time. Okay. So I came up with this more so around that low carbohydrate diet, where the main benefit we're looking to elicit is metabolic flexibility and an increase in fat oxidation or fat burning. And people get so caught up in that they're like, oh, I can't eat carbs. Oh, I've eaten carbs. Now I've completely derailed my whole... It's like, it's not what you do sometimes, it's what you do all of the time. So it's not like you can't train hard ever, but if the majority of training, what you're doing all of the time is aerobically based training, then you'll gain a large aerobic base. If what you do a lot of the time is hard, middle of the road training, you can't really expect to go up or down from that. And if what you do all of the time is continuously like train, overtrain, rest, half-ass training, like that's what you do all of the time, so that's what's going to happen. And it's the same with expectations and results. Triathlon's quite bad for that in terms of people actually understanding what have you run off the bike before, and not what have you run fresh and what do you think you'd do. It's like, what are these actual numbers or times that I'm expecting to hit, because otherwise you're going to be again trying to go too fast and slowing down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you were talking about your saying there, you kind of reminded me of my saying.
Oh, yeah, what's that?
And my saying is that if all you eat is tater tots, you're gonna race like a tater tot.
Oh,
right. So that's my go-to. You could use it with any food, but that's training. Training's chronic, right? So you need to keep doing it. And if you can't keep doing it because you're too tired, or you don't keep doing it because of whatever, you need to really look for those chronic kind of gains in your training. Little baby steps all the time.
Yeah, and that's where it comes from. Like, so if we're talking about sleep, or we're talking about nutrition, or we're talking about stretching or massage or roller work or recovery, it's not what you do sometimes. It's like, oh yeah, I get a massage once a month. It's like, okay, It's what you do. What do you do in the other, like, however many, 29 days in the
Yeah,
month?
that's right. I love tater tots, right? So that doesn't mean I'm not going to ever eat a tater tot. But
Yeah.
if all I ate was tater tots, I would race like a tater tot. And, if all I did was, train way too hard or, blow myself up all the time, I'm going to race um, like a tater tot pretty much. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Although, like, I predominantly train aerobically, right? Like, it would be, like, at the moment, I'm around that 80-20, 80% aerobic, 20% high intensity, for my marathon. But otherwise it'd be even 90, percent. But then I run fast, like, I was able to finish off a 130k running week in the weekend with a 34-minute 10k, which, so although I run slow almost all the time, I can race fast. So I guess my saying doesn't really work in that instance
Right.
if
Yeah.
I'm
So
just
this,
thinking out loud.
well, because if, you think, oh, all I eat is tater tots, I'm going to race like a tater tot. If all you eat is slow running, you're going to race slow. Right? Which, actually isn't true. And this is, both
Well, I
of
guess I
like,
don't always train, but
no, but you
yeah,
do most of like training aerobically just kind of makes sense. And we've talked about that before. I like the benefits of that. And yeah, that's probably another podcast episode, actually.
it definitely is.
Yeah.
It is. But then, like, the majority of you wanted to talk about energy systems today, and I was like, geez, that's a hard one to navigate. Like with this 10k that I just did, although 80-90% of my training is aerobically, that's 95%, probably 97% of a 10k running race is going to be aerobic. So it's not so much like, although I'm running fast, metabolically, I'm using the predominant energy system that I train in.
Yeah, it's all going to be relative. And if you're running for 10K, it's going to be mostly aerobic. It
yeah,
doesn't matter who you are, whether
yeah,
you're running 20-minute Ks or 2-minute Ks or it's going to
yeah.
be aerobic relative to yourself and what you can do. You can't sprint for 10K.
No, no. Um, yeah, yeah. So I guess, I mean, in that sense, my saying still works.
Yeah, definitely,
We'll
definitely.
give it. So what else do you want to know about training, for triathlon, Matt?
Um, I think we could talk about this for years, training
Yeah.
for triathlon. I just like, we're starting to run out of time a little bit here, but what do you think about some major pitfalls that people, have in their training for triathlon? Anything common that you see a lot when you're working with triathletes?
What would be the most common? Swimming too hard. Again, so swimming does need to be hard. We've gone over this. But then it also, you need to be able to swim efficiently. So one of the big things I see is people are going out and they're trying to, generally if you swim with a squad, so you won't know this, Matt, if you swim with a squad, you have lanes. Okay, so you have the fast lane, and then you have the moderate lane and a slow lane. Depending on how big your squad is, there may be more of them, right? And so, like, when I started, I wanted to be in the fastest lane. So I was trying to get there as fast as possible. And I was just reaming myself in these swim sets because now you know our friend Hamish, who used to do triathlon. He's a farmer now. But so Hamish was a far, far better swimmer than me by all accounts. And I'd jump in his lane. Now we'd do a warm up and I'm getting thrashed. And then we'll do the session, and I'm pretty much doing his session, and
Way above your limit.
way above my
How
limit.
do you feel after that?
Like wrecked, and he's
Yeah.
ready to go.
Yeah.
Because he's training essentially like just overall the session is aerobic, I guess, because although on say he's doing hundreds, he's getting 20 seconds rest, and I'm getting 3, and I'm swimming at a higher intensity anyway, and so now by the 10th one, I am just in the box complete, and he's just ticking them off.
Yeah.
You
You
know,
just need to go home and eat a can of baked beans, don't you?
yeah, and so there's no progression there. Again, although we're training high and getting, we're in this middle of the road where now I'm not sort of training easy, but I'm also getting so fatigued. I'm not swimming efficiently, and I'm warming up too hard, and the same goes for swimming too long sets. Like you can get in like 3Ks is completely fine. Even 2Ks, depending on your ability, you can get your warm up done, and you can nail your sets, nail your times, give yourself enough recovery. It doesn't need to be 5 seconds like a lot of people think. You don't need to be pushing for these short turnaround times. Give yourself 15 to 30 seconds. I highly recommend the Swim Smooth program. They essentially have this beeper that goes in your swim cap, and because the pool is always the same distance and water's essentially the same density, when you swim at a speed, it's pretty much the same output over the distance, right? So you put this beeper in, and it can. So you go, oh yeah, I need to be swimming 25 seconds per 25 meters, so it will beep, so you can actually stay on pace. And so
nice.
Throughout the whole session, it's like, if you're doing a bike effort or a run effort, you'd go, I need to bike at 300 watts, 3x5. I need to run 5Ks at 4 minutes.
So it's like a power meter for swimming.
It's like a power meter for swimming. Yeah, so you put this in and you go, I need to swim my threshold. You can do a time trial, 400 meter time trial, 200 meter time trial, just like your critical power one, right? Take the asymptote, draw the curve. There's a calculator online.
Just
do that. And just like your power output comes out at 280 watts, this comes out at your 100 meter threshold is, a minute 40, right? So you can put that timer, you can put that 1 minute 40 in as 25 or 50 meter intervals, and it will beep. So if you're going too hard and then dying, or if you're swimming, too slow, and you need to speed up.
It's just something to kind of gauge.
It's making sure you're staying in your zone,
yeah.
and that consistency. You're not, reaming yourself. And again, with triathletes and a lot of athletes who are often overestimating their abilities, do your time trial, and if your time trial says what it says, that is what you are able to put out.
Yeah, so it's not just triathletes that overestimate their abilities. It's just kind of
athletes.
everyone.
So, do your time trial, and it will tell you, cool. That's just, you have to accept it.
Yeah,
because it's you, and you'll probably end up training slower than what you were, and not being as wrecked by the end of it.
There you go.
So that's in swimming. Then in running, it's generally too hard.
Running too hard, standard.
Running too hard is very standard. And cycling is overall pretty good. I don't really see too we're issues with cycling.
I see one actually. While we're on,
that?
Probably they're braking too much. But we'll talk about that next time maybe.
Biking, the biggest pitfall in biking would be bike setup. Yeah. A lot of the time that sort of, I guess it goes, when we're looking at longer distance, actually in a lot of cases, people are trying to be really aerodynamic.
And they do that and they just actually become less efficient, don't they? Because the setup's wrong for themselves.
Well, you see them, and you got to look at the course and the comfort. And a lot of the time, I don't know how you could measure this, easily, but how many times are you up on what would call up on the hoods or up on the bars, like not in your time trial position? Like how long in a half or a full Ironman are you riding like that? And if it's a large portion of the time, you're better off having a road bike with clip-ons. You're going to be far more comfortable. And then when you're not on the bars, on the clip-on aero bars, you're going to be
more comfortable
and in a more aerodynamic position than when you're like and safer position than when you're going to be able to grab your drink bottle, grab your nutrition, rather than being slammed down. Because now they're going for this grasshopper style where the base bar of a time trial bike is pretty much just above the front wheel, and then you stack the aero bars on top of that.
That's not comfortable for everyone. That's not comfortable
an aerodynamic setup on the bars is the most aerodynamic for sure, but as soon as you get out of that, it's not. So you got to be in the most comfortable, versatile position on your bike. And you can gain a lot from wheels. Again, aero helmets I have a bit of an issue with in a lot of cases because they only work in certain situations. If your head's tucked, with the ones with the tails, and a lot of the time they won't have a lot of ventilation. So if it's a hot day, now you're reducing your ability to cool yourself, and you're sticking your head up. So, it's covering your ears and things. So a lot of that bike setup, people are watching the professionals and going, oh, I need, all of this sort of carry on. You're like, no, you don't.
You need to be comfortable. Yeah.
Yeah, you need to be comfortable. You need to be able to do it. You need to be able to complete a 7-hour ride. Are you going to do a 7-hour ride on your bars? God, that would.
Yeah, that might hurt. You'll be sore anyway, but that would make you maybe more sore.
Yeah, but the thing, so when you're on the time trial bars, like you're closing off that hip angle, you're putting a larger amount of pressure through like your hip flexors and your hamstrings. So that's not helping your run.
Right.
At all. So if you can open yourself up, I'm not going to recommend anyone sitting upright, but that is going to open your hip flexors up quite a bit, which is what you need to do in the run. You need to be standing up. So if you've essentially, exercise, like you're in the position of sitting at a desk almost when you're on your bike, and that folded over, hunched position, and then you got to try and stand up and run with a nice fluid running style. So yeah, that would be pitfalls for the swimming. Swimming far too hard and outside their ability, or not even understanding their own ability with not completing a time trial. The bike is the positional side of things, over comfort, trying to be aerodynamic, and then the run is trying to gain speed or trying to run faster. When in actual fact, I had this friend, he was a marathon runner, really, really good marathon runner, and he's like, he'd sort of retired, he ran collegiate over in the States, and said, oh man, I was like, at the time, this is many years ago, he's going, I'm going to do an Ironman. I was like, you're going to smash it. He goes, no way, I've got to run this marathon after 10 hours of exercise. I'm like, there's no way I'm going to be able to do anything remotely fast. It's just going to be a matter, like, I'm just going to be able to, he's so fit and so well trained in his leg muscles for running that he was just able to complete a steady run without fatiguing, even after having done 10 hours, because for him, he would do a session like that, like a 40K run, at the end of like a month-long training block.
Yikes.
So that's not too dissimilar from doing it at the end of, fatigue levels wise. Yeah.
Sweet.
All right. Yeah, I could definitely go on.
You could
go on. But those are a lot of the things that I consider. And again, like, I think over this whole Training 4 series that we're going to do, we're going to be reiterating the slowing down.
Yeah, I think we will. Yeah.
The slowing down and consistency. So the best way to do that is heart rate. Jump on pacoaching.tv, check out the blog, and it says how I recommend to train in the heart rate zones and how to calculate your own heart rate zones.
Or you could do it by training with power, and we talked about that last week, so you could listen to that podcast that we talked about last week.
Or you could contact myself or Matt Miller at MTB PhD. We're both professional professional coaches, Matt? Is that what you call
Yeah,
yourself?
yeah, we are. That's
Yeah.
pretty crazy, isn't it?
It is. It is
Yeah.
a bit. All right then, Matt. We'll touch base next week. Thanks for joining me again.
Sweet.
Appreciate it. See ya.